Tokyo, a city of neon lights, bullet trains, and endless crowds where faces blur together. A place where secrets can hide in plain sight. Among the millions, there lived a man who embodied everything Japan prided itself on: discipline, intelligence, and honor. By day, Dr. Kiyoshi Takamura was a respected surgeon at one of Tokyo's leading hospitals. His white coat symbolized trust. His steady hands saved lives. Families bowed in gratitude when he stepped out of operating rooms, sweat on his brow, but relief in his voice. But what no one knew, what no one dared even imagine, was that the same man who stitched hearts back together by day was tearing them from living bodies by night. And Tokyo was about to learn that monsters don't always lurk in alleys. Sometimes, they stand at the head of the operating table. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe, because this story will take you into the darkest corridors of medicine, crime, and human desperation. And trust me, you won't want to miss what comes next. Dr. Takamura's story begins like any golden boy tale. Born to a middle-class family in Saitama, he was brilliant, obedient, and endlessly ambitious. His father, a stern school teacher, reminded him daily, "Honor your family through excellence." Kiyoshi did. He graduated at the top of his class, secured scholarships, and trained at prestigious universities. By 40, he was head of transplant surgery at Shinjuku General Hospital. His colleagues respected him. His patients adored him. But there was something no one saw: the weight behind his eyes. Because in Japan, the waiting list for organ transplants was long, too long. Families begged for hope while patients withered away. And every day, Takamura had to tell them no. He hated the look in their eyes, the desperation, the betrayal. That was when he started asking himself dangerous questions. What if I could give them what they needed? What if the law was the only thing standing in the way? And once that seed was planted, it grew roots he could never cut away. It started with one organ, just one. But as you'll see, one was never enough. Tokyo has its clean, glittering surface, but beneath lies an underworld most citizens never glimpse. Bars where yakuza gather, warehouses where counterfeit goods flow, and then the quiet, shadowy corners where organs are whispered about like currency. The first time Takamura stepped into this world was through a man named Hideo Sakamoto, a smooth-talking broker who could find anything for a price.
Doctor, there's a market for men like you. You could make miracles happen if you're willing to get your hands dirty.
Takamura laughed it off, but Sakamoto slid a folder across the table. Inside were names, faces, bank accounts, desperate families who would pay millions for a kidney, a liver, a heart. That night, Takamura didn't sleep. By dawn, he had made his choice. The first surgery wasn't in a hospital. It was in a rented clinic after hours, under buzzing fluorescent lights. The donor, a homeless man, had been lured with promises of shelter and money. The recipient, a corporate executive's teenage daughter, was wheeled in with trembling hope. When the girl woke up weeks later, smiling with color in her cheeks, Takamura felt a rush unlike anything before. He had saved her. He had given life. But at the cost of another. That's when Takamura learned the most dangerous truth of all. Saving one life could mean destroying another. The money poured in, and with it the illusion of control. By day, Takamura continued his respectable life, lecturing at universities, performing legitimate surgeries, bowing politely to the cameras when the press called him a miracle worker. But by night, the masks came off. His small team of accomplices grew. Sakamoto brought in men to source donors, foreign workers, undocumented immigrants, addicts, people the system wouldn't miss. At first, Takamura told himself they were volunteers, that they chose to sell their organs. But deep down, he knew. Some didn't walk in willingly, and some didn't walk out at all. He buried those doubts under success. Every transplant made him more famous. Every envelope of cash made him more untouchable. Until the mistakes began. A young nurse at Shinjuku General noticed discrepancies in his patient files. A delivery driver reported hearing screams from the clinic at night. And one missing persons case, an immigrant worker who vanished after cleaning the hospital, landed in the lap of Tokyo's Metropolitan Police. The walls were closing in, and someone very close to Takamura was about to betray him. Her name was Aya Nakamura, a surgical resident who admired Takamura like a father. She saw him as the perfect doctor, precise, compassionate, incorruptible. But one night, Aya stumbled into a back room of the clinic after hours. What she saw froze her blood. A man strapped to a gurney, eyes wide with terror, as Takamura's scalpel hovered above his chest. She backed out before anyone noticed. She didn't sleep that night. Her idol was a monster. For weeks, Aya wrestled with herself. Should she expose him? Should she run? Or could she confront him? When she finally did, her voice trembled.
Sensei? Why?
Because the law is too slow. Because people die waiting. Because someone must make the hard choices.
But you're killing the innocent.
Then don't watch.
Takamura's face hardened. For the first time, Aya saw him without his mask. Aya thought she could stay silent, but silence has a way of turning into complicity, and soon her name would be written into his darkness. Meanwhile, Detective Ryo Tanaka of Tokyo PD was connecting dots no one else dared to. A string of missing immigrants, a pattern of unexplained transplants, anonymous whispers about a doctor who delivered miracles too quickly. Tanaka was relentless, a bloodhound who never let go once he caught a scent. And every lead brought him closer to Shinjuku General Hospital and Dr. Takamura. The doctor felt the noose tightening. He grew paranoid. He stopped sleeping. Every shadow looked like a policeman. Every knock on the door made his hands tremble. But instead of stopping, he pushed further. More organs, more secrecy, more blood. Because at this point, it wasn't just about saving lives. It was about power, control, playing God in a city that worshipped him. And then came the night when one of his own patients, saved by his black market surgery, would become the very person to expose him. The patient was a young man named Daichi Ito, a university student whose father had paid a fortune for a kidney transplant. The surgery saved him, but Daichi couldn't shake the horror of how secretive it had been. The locked doors, the shadowy faces, the pain of knowing someone else had lost a piece of themselves for his survival. Daichi began asking questions, too many questions. And when he discovered Aya Nakamura, the terrified resident who knew too much, the two of them made a choice to go to the police. Detective Tanaka listened and launched an investigation with the details he had gathered. In a few weeks, he had names, details, times, and places. The investigation turned from whispers to open pursuit. But Takamura wasn't blind. He knew betrayal was near, and the night before his arrest, he disappeared. His apartment empty, his office stripped, his clinic abandoned. All that remained was a single note on his desk. "The work is not finished. You cannot stop me." And he was right, because months later, organs began appearing again on the black market, fresher, faster, and more frequent than ever, which could only mean one thing. Dr. Kiyoshi Takamura was still out there.
The note was short, almost mocking. "The work is not finished. You cannot stop me." Detective Ryo Tanaka stood over the desk, the paper trembling in his gloved hand. The room around him was bare. No files, no personal belongings, not even a toothbrush. Dr. Kiyoshi Takamura, Tokyo's miracle surgeon by day, black market organ thief by night, had vanished without a trace. The case that had consumed Tanaka's nights had just taken a terrifying new turn. Because this wasn't just the story of a doctor fleeing justice, It was the beginning of something much bigger. And the organs flooding into Tokyo's black market only proved it. Weeks after Takamura's disappearance, police began hearing whispers. Kidneys, livers, and even corneas were suddenly everywhere. Prices dropped, demand soared. The illegal trade was thriving like never before. But the strangest part? Every operation bore the same surgical signature. Precise incisions, minimal scarring, flawless technique. Detective Tanaka knew that signature. He had studied it for months. "It's him," Tanaka muttered. "It has to be." Yet how? Takamura had no passport records, no bank activity, no sightings. He had disappeared like smoke into the wind. The truth was worse. Takamura wasn't hiding, he was expanding. To disappear in Japan, one needs friends in low places, and Takamura found them in the Sumiyoshi-kai, one of Tokyo's most ruthless Yakuza syndicates. Their leader, an aging boss named Shunpei Watanabe, saw in Takamura not a fugitive, but an asset.
You have hands that print money. We'll keep you safe. You'll keep us rich.
Watanabe told him. And so, beneath the neon glow of Shinjuku and the quiet alleys of Osaka, Takamura's work resumed, this time with an army behind him. But it wasn't just criminals funding him now. Rumors whispered of politicians and business tycoons, men who wanted organs not for profit, but for themselves and their families. Takamura wasn't just a surgeon anymore. He was becoming a kingmaker of life and death. Back in Tokyo, Aya Nakamura, the resident who once idolized him, was drowning in guilt. She had kept quiet too long, and now the monster she once followed was untouchable. One night, unable to bear the weight, she met Detective Tanaka in a dim cafe. Her hands shook as she slid a folder across the table.
These are his personal notes. I took them before he disappeared.
She whispered. Inside were pages filled with Takamura's scrawled handwriting, but they weren't surgical notes. They were experiments. Entries described not just transplants, but modifications, combining tissues, extending viability beyond legal limits, attempting what he called the pursuit of medical immortality. Tanaka's stomach turned. Takamura wasn't just stealing organs, he was researching something darker. Aya looked at him, tears in her eyes.
Detective? He isn't trying to save lives anymore. He's trying to rewrite them.
Across Japan, a disturbing trend emerged. Certain hospital patients, those in critical but non-terminal condition, were disappearing. Families were told they had died suddenly, but no bodies were shown, no funerals, no cremation certificates. One grieving brother, suspicious of the lies, followed the hospital van carrying his sister's body. The trail led not to a crematorium, but to a warehouse near Yokohama. He never made it home. Days later, his car was found abandoned at the docks. His sister's medical chart had been erased. Both were gone. When Tanaka received this report, a chill ran through him.
This isn't just about organs anymore. They're harvesting people.
He said grimly. Tanaka knew he couldn't wait for airtight evidence. He pushed for a raid on the Yokohama warehouse. The night of the operation, heavily armed police stormed the building. Inside, they found operating tables, sterilized tools, and freezers stacked with organs in vacuum-sealed bags. But the worst was in the basement. Rows of cages, people strapped to gurneys, IV lines in their arms, sedated but alive. The donor farm. The rescued victims, foreign workers, addicts, homeless, were barely conscious. Some were missing kidneys already. Others bore stitched scars across their chests. But Takamura was gone. Again. On a blood-stained wall, written in surgical ink, were 3 words. You are late. The news of the raid hit Japan like an earthquake. The public was horrified. Hospitals tightened security. Politicians scrambled to distance themselves. But behind the scenes, whispers grew louder. Takamura had fled Japan entirely. Interpol confirmed sightings, Hong Kong, Manila, even whispers in Seoul. Each city reported the same: sudden spikes in black market transplants, surgical precision, and missing patients. The case had gone global. Detective Tanaka was furious. He's not just a fugitive anymore. He's building an empire. Months later, a break came from the Philippines. Authorities raided a clinic in Manila's Chinatown. Inside, they found more cages, more victims, and something chilling: a journal. Takamura's handwriting again. But this time, the notes spoke of a new obsession: to create the donor that never dies, a perfect vessel, an endless supply. The implication was terrifying. Takamura wasn't just stealing organs. He was researching a way to create humans whose bodies could be harvested indefinitely. Medical immortality, but at the cost of human autonomy. Tanaka slammed the files shut. He's not a doctor anymore. He's a butcher chasing godhood. Back in Tokyo, Aya Nakamura's guilt had made her a target. One rainy night, she never came home. Her apartment door was left ajar, her belongings untouched. On her desk was a single envelope addressed to Tanaka. Inside was a photo: Aya, bound to a chair, eyes wide with terror. On the back, written in red ink, were 3 words: "She will be my masterpiece." Tanaka clenched the photo until his knuckles bled. Aya wasn't just a witness anymore. She was bait. Interpol traced Takamura's movements to Singapore. An anonymous tip suggested he would be performing a secret surgery at a luxury hotel's underground clinic. Tanaka flew there, desperate and sleepless. The sting operation was set. But when they stormed the clinic, the patient was gone. The bed was still warm, the tools freshly sterilized. And on the tray, one item remained: a locket. Aya's locket. Inside was her photo, with a surgical X carved across her chest. Tanaka's knees buckled. Takamura was always one step ahead, always watching. And then came the revelation that turned the case upside down. A hacker group leaked files from private Japanese hospitals. Buried in the data were records of government officials receiving transplants. Off the books, untraceable, all linked to Takamura. The conspiracy was deeper than Tanaka ever imagined. Takamura wasn't just being protected by criminals. He was being protected by statesmen. That was why every time the police got close, he slipped away. Why every raid seemed just a step behind. He wasn't running from the system. He was working with it. Determined to break the chain, Tanaka went rogue. He followed a trail of coded messages to Macau, where Takamura was rumored to be hosting a surgery for a billionaire client. Tanaka stormed the luxury hotel with a handful of trusted allies. But instead of an operating theater, he found a trap. Explosives rigged to detonate. A firestorm engulfed the lower floors. As smoke filled the air, Tanaka staggered through the chaos, coughing, barely alive. Through the haze, he thought he saw him, Takamura, calm, smiling, watching from the rooftop as the building burned. By the time firefighters arrived, the surgeon was gone. Again. Months passed. Whispers spread across Asia. Takamura was seen in Malaysia, then in Thailand, then in Cambodia. But then, just as suddenly, the trail went cold. Until one night in Tokyo, a man collapsed outside Shinjuku Station. His chest bore fresh stitches. Inside his jacket was a hospital wristband from Shinjuku General. Tanaka's heart
He's
froze.
back.
The nightmare had come full circle. And then came the recording, delivered anonymously to police headquarters.
The video showed Aya Nakamura, alive but gaunt, pale, strapped to a chair. Behind her, Takamura stepped into frame. His eyes burned with manic pride.
To those hunting me, know this. Aya is proof the body can be remade. The soul can be bent. She is not my prisoner. She is my creation. And soon, she will not be the only one.
The screen went black. Detective Tanaka slammed his fist against the table. Aya was alive, but transformed into something darker. And Takamura, he was no longer just trafficking organs. He was experimenting with people. The question was no longer how to catch him. It was, how far had he already gone? Because somewhere in Tokyo, under the neon lights, people were vanishing again. And rumors whispered of clinics where patients woke up not missing an organ, but no longer entirely human. The hunt wasn't over. It had only just begun.
Follow for part 2.